right, let's go ahead and start the meeting with pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next. We have a pretty packed meeting agenda tonight. We had our the first executive session. Would you go ahead and do the roll call for us, please, Jeff?
Yes, Councillor Mayton.
Present.
Councillor Smallwood.
Here.
Councillor Sheldon. Here. Councillor Ramsayer.
Here.
Councillor Hanley.
Here.
Councillor Hokinson.
Here.
Mayor Walker.
Here. Thank you so much. So the agenda we have tonight is, of course, public comment, and it looks like we've got four cards here plus one online. And we'll have folks be given 3 minutes each to come up and speak. Thank you all for coming, appreciate it. We'll have any response to previous comments. We've got the consent agenda, which has our meeting minutes from August 4th. And we have a staff report and final policy, zero tolerance policy for the transit folks on drug and alcohol use. Our presentations tonight are concerning the water management and conservation plan update, and that is pretty much informational only, but I assume AJ is going to be doing that. And then we'll have an executive session pursuant to ORS 192.6602F, followed by old business of alternative wastewater system discussion and policy direction. And finally, we'll finish up with reports from the city manager and committee council reports. Are there any changes in staff updates? Are there any changes to the agenda?
Mayor, I'd like to propose that we add an agenda item to talk about the OGEC and the councilor mayor communications. A few more minutes if we could talk about that.
Okay,
That's
do you have a
something on the
particular
agenda.
time you wanted to stick that in or not?
I'd like it if Nellie can be here when we have that discussion. I don't know if she's planning to be through the entire meeting or part of it.
Whatever works for
You are now, huh?
Why don't we do that after the presentation on the water management and conservation plan update? Would that be okay?
That'd be great. Thank you.
Very good. Okay, remind me if I don't, if we get there and I haven't mentioned it. Okay, any other changes to the agenda? Great. All right, well, thank you all for coming. I've got, do we want to do the Zoom one? I believe Nicole was first.
Sure.
Yeah, is she
Okay.
ready to go, do you think?
Well, Nicole, I see that you are on Zoom, so you should, let's see here. Bear with me one moment, please.
Did you have a script here?
Hmm?
Did you have the script for that or did you already get it? It's the script for the.
So Nicole, you should be able to unmute yourself now and go ahead and please state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hold on.
Oh, sorry, Mayor.
The council welcomes your comments at this time. The mayor will call on each person when it's their turn to speak. Nicole, I'm going to call on you first for up to 3 minutes. If you're attending the meeting in person, please submit your comment sign up, which I have, to the city recorder before the regular meeting at 7. If you're attending the meeting via Zoom, complete the online comment sign up form by 4 p.m. There is a requirement for giving your name and your address at the time that you're making comments. If for whatever reason that is an issue, you may give them directly to the city recorder. Okay, all right. Can we get her on the screen?
I believe she, we don't have video, but I do believe she is unmuted. So
Okay,
Nicole, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Loud and clear. Yeah, you got
Very good.
3 minutes.
Awesome. Nicole O'Neill, 17724 Van Tassel, Sandy, Oregon. And I just wanted to take the time to come and say thank you to the council and the mayor on behalf of the Sandy Historical Society Museum, because we have finished up our special service contract for the 23-25 biennium. And I wanted to give you an update on how the city's funds were used. So for the past 2 years, the city has funded our internship program. And for the first 18 months of that program, interns were doing things along the lines of visitor services, compiling information for our local history binders. And we have supplied those local history binders to a number of organizations just over the summer, including the City of Sandy, Oregon Trail School District, Sandy Mountain Festival. Those get used a lot. So that has been really great having help on that. And then our intern as well the last couple of months has been doing a great job moving our upstairs exhibit down into the basement, because we are going to have our new Pursuit of Happiness exhibit coming in from the Oregon Historical Society. More to come about that later. But then this last summer, we wanted to have an internship that had a little bit more of a broader reach. So we had our journalism intern, and she has done a fantastic job. We have the incoming editor-in-chief of the Pioneer Press, and I believe she has interviewed several of you. I just now posted her article on Blanche Shelley, our first woman mayor here in Sandy. She's also written articles on the digitization of the Sandy Post, on the Bull Run Powerhouse, on Linda Malone, Mayor Malone. She's working on a number of other things, so she has just been a great addition. And I just wanted to say thank you for all of your support. Her Bull Run Powerhouse article has already gotten 5,500 views. And on a side note, the Sandy Historical Society Facebook page's post on the city council letter from 1958 now has 57,000 views in the last 5 days. So you guys have gone viral. So.
Very good, thank you, Sonia. So I have other cards here. I guess we'll just kind of group things. I have Chris Jones. Welcome. Thanks for coming to this.
And do I give these for John? Do I give these to you or do I?
I can ask them after, sure.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hi, I'm Chris Jones. I'm here on behalf of the Sandy Chamber of Commerce. And my chamber address is P.O. Box 1275 in Sandy, Oregon. And I'll just go ahead and read our letter here. Dear Mayor Walker and council members, after attending the July 21st City Council meeting online, it's critical that we address a matter of concern regarding recent incorrect statements made by the Sandy Area Chamber of Commerce, which include inaccuracy we feel are important to clarify for the public record. The first one is regarding Trick or Treat Trail, and I'm going to go ahead and read some quotes here. Well, when you know an example that has had is where we helped fund the Trick or Treat Trail or whatever. And when the sponsors allow folks to promote a particular political candidate that's involving and promoting political activities. And since we're helping fund that, that's not something that we would normally, do. I mean, that's something that other council members jumped in with. That's such a slippery slope. Our response is the Trick or Treat Trail is solely organized and operated by the Sandy Area Chamber of Commerce. The city of Sandy does not currently provide funding or in-kind support for this event and has not done so since 2017. The chamber received funding from the city for this program from 2015 through 2017. Since 2018, the chamber has fully funded the Trick or Treat Trail. Additionally, there is no fee for businesses or organizations to participate in the Trick or Treat Trail. It is a free and inclusive event designed to foster community engagement and provide a safe space for families. The second one is the chamber's nonprofit status, a classification, and the quote. But that's an example of where under their 501c3, they can be allowed to do where they can't be allowed to do is where they're sponsoring events, which there is a definite promotion of a particular candidate. I would agree, for the most part, but by I think that the challenge there is where, 501c3s, nonprofits that are doing that, that's a clear promoting a political agenda, violation of the IRS quotes. I can count chapter, I can quote you chapter and verse if you need it. Our response is that it was misleading during the meeting that the Sandy Area Chamber of Commerce is a 501c3. To clarify, the Sandy Area Chamber of Commerce is a 501c6 nonprofit organization. As a 501c6, which includes business leagues, chambers of commerce, real estate boards, and similar organizations, we are permitted to include a broad range of community participation, including religious groups and political organizations in our event, providing that the primary purpose of the Chamber of Commerce remains the promotion of common business interests. Any political activity or lobbying does not become the organization's main focus. We comply with IRS guidelines regarding political involvement, member dues, and public disclosures when necessary. Unlike a 501c3, which faces strict limitations on political activity, a 501c6 has greater flexibility in who can participate in its programs and events, so long as those activities support its exempt purpose. We're always happy to answer any questions, provide additional clarity to the public as accurate information. Please do not hesitate to reach out and discuss. Thank you.
Next on the agenda is Ms. Skinner.
Can I say something just real
Oh,
quick?
sure.
I think we realized in our follow-up meeting to that one, we realized the 501c3 didn't apply, and I think the proposals we were looking at, adjusted that way to just,
Yeah, I think I'm the one that pointed that out.
yeah. probably.
My meetings
So
with
thank
Jeff
you.
the Friday after
Yeah.
that. Yeah, thank you.
Follow up with some additional information at the next meeting. Ms. Skinner, thank you. You're here to talk about wastewater.
Yes, the wastewater.
It's our favorite
Hi.
topic.
No. Nikki Skinner, 18422 Meadow Avenue, the very east end of DeBarco, where they're gonna build behind us, as you well know. I'm here because a lot of people that I've talked to have not really read into the wastewater issue. And they just have skimmed through it, as I did until it was brought up to me. And so one of the things I was wondering about is when I was reading all the information, is that the cost is the same going to Gresham as if it was going to Sandy River. Though we would not have to maintain it or whatnot. Why would we want to go to another city and county, which is one of the highest tax counties in Oregon, and put ourselves in that boat? The other thing is 10 to 14% for 8 years is what it said. We would all get dinged on. And so is that dinging for on our water bill, or is that our property values? It doesn't say. And then after 8 years, do we get a 10 to 14% decrease? And then when the pipe, where is the pipeline going? Where is it going through? Are the landowners aware of this? Has that been already done? And if there's a leak, who's responsible? Sorry, American Family Insurance in town here. That's where I work. Is it gonna be Sandy or Gresham? Are we gonna have to fork up money to repair something that maybe it's not our fault because we're not maintaining it the way they're gonna maintain it? And then also with Gresham, if they decide, oh, we need some more money for something, a homeless, the this, the that, we'll just go ahead and put a little bit more tax on the wastewater, since that's coming from Sandy. Those are my points, and I was just wondering if that had been thought about, and I would assume it would. And one of my other things is, I know if you've already made your mind up, this is like a moot point. But there's a lot of people that were not aware that this is what was going on. So maybe there needs to be a little bit more transparency. Well, thank you very much, and I appreciate you guys
Thank you.
very much.
Yeah, thank you.
So, thank you.
And part of the reason we have been trying to be more transparent, and that's why we've been putting all this information online to try to kind of, get things explained better.
Yes,
But you brought up a lot of good points. A lot of those points have already been raised by us ourselves.
I'd hope so.
Exactly. And we had the same concerns and questions. And so what we'll do with that, we are putting together kind of a Q&A, FAQ, frequently asked questions, for our website that include both the questions that have been asked online and the points, which are some of the same ones that you're raising tonight. So we're going to get those online, with the answers, and hopefully that will help get the word out so that everybody can see it. 'Cause
Okay,
not
and then
everybody's-
also one more thing, was Roslyn Lake area ever considered for a waste management?
Yes,
Oh, okay,
Uh-huh.
we did, and it did not pencil out
Yeah.
okay,
the way we wanted to because of the soil structures and the wells in the area and things like that.
Oh, okay.
And very problematic.
okay, thank you.
I think it's important to keep in mind too, that we have not landed on a decision. We still have two paths forward with the Sandy or Gresham.
Oh, good, okay,
Gresham has more positives currently in our evaluation, which is why we're pursuing it. But that we're a ways away from knowing that it's a viable solution.
okay, well, thank you, and I appreciate you guys being transparent, and please give us more information. Okay, thank you.
Great, okay. Carl, Mr. Exner, former counselor. Exner, you want to do both at once or one
No,
first?
one, the other one for the
What's this
Other
two-card
point.
What's the what?
So I like to talk, so I'll talk two times,
He
if
said
that's
two
okay.
cards.
It's great to be able to see this side of the council and staff and even the police. Appreciate that. My name is Carl Gaxner, 40215 McCormick Court here in Sandy, so I'm here close by. I got my bill, by the way. Part of the reason why I'm here at first. $120 for just the water. Just the water. It doesn't include the other things that I pay for. Really concerned about how this is going to be affecting the people that are here in Sandy. It just makes me wonder, how are we going to be able to afford this? Especially some of the senior citizens that are on a single Social Security bill, and you're going to take this 10 to 15% increase next, several years, at least 5 years. Looks to me like almost 100% increase. So I could be spending $250 on my water bill. And I'm trying very hard, by the way, to do conservative things to make my water bill as small as possible, which is one of the things that I'd like to remind you, if you haven't already heard, is that as you increase rates and as you increase fees on tops of things like the water bill, wastewater, people start feeling that pressure of that, and they're going to find ways to reduce their bill. And there'll be a time when, this has been shown in a number of different cities here in Oregon, that income will start leveling off. Pretty soon you won't get any increases. People will stop making those big payments. I hope you consider that as you move along, because I know that with the restrictions that we have on the connections with the wastewater connections, you're going to slow down growth. And I know we had a certain percentage of growth expected, and part of the prediction that we would be able to pay for our investments, the loans that you guys have accepted. If that increase slows down, which I suspect it will, with all the perception about how we cannot connect those sewer lines, that I suspect that our growth rates are going to be looking a lot lower than what we were hoping for past. I'm looking at the investment and the economic people over here to make sure that that's happening. I also have a concern, and it was when I was sitting in one of those seats up there, is that we're working pell-mell down this road to get these water and the wastewater projects completed. And I hear numbers like $250, $300 million between what we did with the I&I, we did with the Tickle Creek. Shake your head all you want to, but my guess is that with all the increases in inflation, with the different things that happen with contractors, my guess is that it won't be cheap to get these water, wastewater, all the expenses we put into it already. So I'm wondering, I know that DEQ and DOJ and Oregon Water Resources, and you name it, a whole number of other agencies that really want to see us get this thing done and get it done quickly. Are we pushing so hard that you're going to take people like myself who are trying to figure out how to pay the bills? Are we really doing them justice? Are you really looking at all of the options? And there may be some out of the box kind of ways of taking care of this. I get the part that you don't have all of your agendas figured out yet. But I also am concerned about places like Portland Water Bureau, have you gotten every single one of their charges figured out yet? I suspect they haven't told you what they're gonna charge you for that water going through the infiltration plant. I suspect,
I think that's.
have they?
Yep.
Okay, all right. I would love to see those numbers, by the way. I haven't been able to find them, so staff, if you could, or whoever is responsible for doing it, I'd like to see those numbers. Same thing with Gresham. Do you know what the rates are gonna be for those things? I see you shaking your head. Those things are gonna impact our rates and how much we're gonna pay as well. So I hope you include those things in your analysis. And so I'm hoping that those kind of things are gonna be something you're gonna help us to know about. And I would like to see that happen before you make all those decisions. Sometimes it's tough to say no to making more data than is necessary because you have this constraint on when you're supposed to get the septic and, sewer stuff all taken care of, when your water is supposed to be ready. And I know that's gonna push you really hard. So I'm hoping that you'll give us the entire number. So I know how much I'm gonna have to work on my water bill for the next couple of years. With that, thank you for listening to me. I'm hoping that you can find some good solutions. I
Was
know
that
you're gonna
both?
work hard at it.
Was that both?
What's that?
Was that both your cards?
No, I have one more when it goes to the other item. I'm hoping you're letting me speak then too.
Okay.
So first of all, I want to thank you and the other lady and everybody else that's chimed up about this water and wastewater problem. Because I don't think it has been noticed by the community as well. And we're starting to feel that even more so in our water bill. I haven't even watered my yard this year because it's,
I don't want, I have
it's $400 without it, right?
400. I have churned
But-
up my grass into a no water front yard completely. That's part of my conservation issue, but I still
So,
have things that need.
so one thing I do
still
want,
flush.
got to do that.
Got to do
Thank
that.
you. So one thing I do want to put on notice is, you know, we received no, I did finally get signed, right? We did get our 5 million.
Yeah.
Okay. We did get $5 million from the state legislature, right? But that's also the same, it's really disappointing. While that's great and fine and dandy, it's also really disappointing because that's the same amount that Estacada got for theirs.
Mhm.
And there's a $60 million project, and the numbers that you're discussing,
Maybe they're high. but-
maybe they're a little bit high, but
They're
they're not horribly high. And so what I really want to encourage, and I mean, as much as we can, I know staff put together a letter, is as we move forward, we need to come together as a community and start sending this to our legislatures. We should have gotten more money than and it's nothing against Estacada. Our project is just more needed. If the governor wants to sit there and say that needed housing is the one of the number one priorities in the state, we are literally a community that cannot grow and that has a desire to grow to a degree. And we get the same amount of money as a community that has a lot less need and is continually growing. So I would ask, if you ask how you can get more information, get involved, it's seriously and the session's over now. But we need to communicate with our legislator. We need to get more outside money because that's the way
Oh,
the
sure.
project costs aren't going to go down. That's just what the labor and materials and all of that's
Oh,
going to
yeah.
cost. But what we can do is if we can get some outside help, that'll have a substantial reduction in all of those increases that you asked about for earlier.
And I just gotta say, $5 million is a nice number, but it's
nowhere
nowhere
near.
close.
We were
Nowhere.
asking 14,
14.
and it was a bit of
Even
a,
14 million, we did get a few years back similarly,
right, but we,
but that's still
Yeah.
a fairly small number
Right.
compared to
And
what
so,
we are
yeah.
throwing.
It's not proportionate to what Estacada got,
Right.
right?
Absolutely.
A community right down the road that is throwing up houses left and right and is obtaining the state's goal of building needed housing. And we are literally locked down to whatever we can do and we get the same amount. So I understand that it's kind of like keep everybody happy, but if they're truly caring about our need, we also need to make sure our need is getting met. And I know Nellie and her group did a great job. I'm not trying to smash that, but that would be super helpful if you were looking for them.
Well, thanks for the courtesy response. I appreciate that. And I appreciate my few moments, probably more than the 3 minutes you were supposed to give me.
Mayor, can I do a 30-second response?
sure.
Carl, you raised
You
the
know, one other
question.
comment I gotta make, I'm sitting back here.
Sit down, it's okay, I'll talk to you. But
I'll
you
sit
raised,
up here.
you brought up a point about, are we spending money too fast to accommodate the timelines, which ultimately cost you more money because, you know, scope, schedule, budget, right? And I think for clarity, when we started these projects, you and me,
Oh, yeah.
5 years ago, we were in that mode of spend money as fast as we can to try to get ourselves into compliance with DEQ and the EPA under that consent and get that consent decree negotiated. So we had to spend money and yeah, we probably could have saved a few bucks here or there because we were fast tracking stuff. We are in a different frame of different part of the project now.
We still have your deadlines, though.
We still have our deadlines, but because we were able to finally make up and get ahead of things a little bit, we're now putting things out to bid, multiple bidders, contracts, bids are coming in general under our estimates, so that's not that it's good news. I mean, it's still a huge amount of money, but
Okay.
it means the process is working now because we have the time and it's getting structured. So I think what you were referring to, we were in, we're
Right.
not now.
Well, that's encouraging. I appreciate that.
And the other thing that I'll just add to close it out is that, yeah, the numbers that you mentioned were a bit high. And so.
I've heard those numbers mentioned in many different conversations.
Well, again, we're looking at the numbers, you know,
So do you know what they are? What are they?
it kind of depends on what number you're talking about. So we're trying to kind of put those out there. Some of them are very, somewhat tentative and stuff because it
sure.
really does. What we're trying to do is as soon as we kind of get bids on things, we're able to kind of, adjust the spreadsheets and all. But my point is that first of all, there's a whole lot of things that we can be doing. And Rich's comments is that we are going to be going after additional federal and state grants here big time. And we've got some ideas about how we can be more effective at getting more money. We've got some ideas about how we can pull in some additional funding from other places to try to, again, get our rates down. So I think it's, we've also got some options. What I've been looking at is kind of how, you're very familiar with the black boxes of, you put in all these projects and this and that, and timelines and assumptions and all that into this I don't want to say a black box, but it's a big, huge spreadsheet. And there's a lot of assumptions that are made in that spreadsheet. And so what we've been doing is taking a look at some of those assumptions. Like what if we did 30 years instead of 20 years? What if we?
You have the flexibility to do that? I mean,
We're looking at.
deadlines that
We're-
Counselor.
No,
Well, some of them-
long paybacks.
Okay.
Yeah,
No payments.
things like that. And so, what does that do? So what we're trying to do is kind of look at, there was a lot of assumptions made going into this where we didn't really know what the assumptions were. And so what I'm saying is that we have a responsibility to ask those hard questions. And that's what I'm doing. It's like, what if we took this project off and delayed it another 10 or 15 years? What if we set a payback of 30 years versus 20 years? So we're trying to and it's pretty easy to kind of run those modules and stuff to see how that would change rates and all. The other thing that you were mentioning is that, what the rates, we have been able to negotiate with the city of Portland. Jenny was, one of the last things she did successfully was get us rates at the city of Portland for only the water we use, whereas we were prior to that paying for water, whether we used it or not. And so what that did was that kind of jump started some of the projects up at Alder Creek to kind of, maximize the ability to use as much water as we can up there, because everything we do
Way to
up
do it.
there, we don't necessarily, we have to pay to get those upgrades, but once those are there, we have to purchase less water from the city of Portland. Not no water, because in the summertime, Alder Creek, even on a,
Sure.
even on its best day in the summertime, cannot keep up totally with our use. And so that's where the city of Portland comes in, both for peak days in the summertime, but also for backup in case of emergencies at Alder Creek. And so we are trying to do that. So I guess what I want to say is we are doing everything we can. We have all the same concerns that you all have, and we're doing everything in our power to try to look at every point of it, every option that we can leverage, every dollar that we can go out and chase. And and the information that you're getting now is kind of our effort to try to start getting this information out, transparency. We're not going to have all the information out there right away because, as you saw it said, we haven't, settled on the final alternative. And even when you do, you start with, your 30% plans. You have conceptual master plans, and then you have your 30% plans, 60% plans, and 90% plans. And so some of the project is in the 90 and 100% plans. And we know, like the existing improvements that are needed at the treatment plant, those are getting done right now. But for this other stuff, and you asked, it is down Highway 26 right of way. And so, and where we hook in, it's going to be determined. That's what they're looking at. Do we hook in all the way to the Columbia River or do we hook in before that? So they're looking at the options of that. And what, you know, what those costs are all things that we're not gonna know right now. And we're not gonna know for a while if that's the alternative we go with. So we're trying to get out as much information as we can, but we don't have all the answers. So we're trying to give out.
Your best information that I have so far is this water bill.
Right. Mhm.
And it's the one that I hit every month and it keeps seeming to go up. So
Yeah.
I appreciate the desire to make sure that we hear about your status and where things are.
Right.
But it would sound like it's not doing as much as a lot of us would like to hear. So, and we're concerned that
Right.
these might be double what they are today. So
We're all concerned.
I'm going to sit down because I know other people
Thank
are
you very much.
going.
And the last,
As well.
another 3-minute thing on the alternate wastewater. Do you want to go ahead and do that now?
I could.
Okay, let's go ahead and
I was
do
hoping
that.
to do it at the other time, but I'll do it now. I'm concerned about, well, first off, I want to applaud the different ideas that you're using to find a way to get connections. So we're talking about porta potties, we're talking about doing septic systems inside the city, and I read all the concerns and I appreciate every one of those. And as a realtor, I'm really amused would be the word about all of the things that we're trying to do to meet the deadlines and meet the objectives of getting some more growth and more buildings, especially in the industrial commercial side of the world. We really do need to push that down the road. It seems like it's part of my story earlier when that we are pushing hard as we can to do whatever we can to make these things somehow manageable. But it seems to me that using porta potties in even an industrial situation, and I think I read that you're trying to do them in places where you public wouldn't be expected to use them and those kinds of things. But you still are looking at a number of individuals working in a building that have to share porta potties and all of the things that go with porta potties that we all know and love about. And how am I going to sell a house that has to have a septic system is the only way for us to get sewer connections going? And if that doesn't reduce the perception of the ability for Sandy to grow, I don't know what will. You tell me I can't connect to the city's main, but I have to find a way to do a septic system. Or maybe, I know it's not done in, or you're not proposing to do it in the single family zones, but people are going to ask. And that seems to me be a perception that Sandy needs to figure out a way to get past, that we are limited, that we don't have the ability to grow, that we don't have the impetus from the different organizations to give us a chance to be able to move like we thought we were going to. I remember the days when we were saying we were the 5th fastest growing city in the state. I suspect we're not that now. I know we have developments, see them going up. Hallelujah. I make some money off of those things, but it is important that we continue to do that where we are if we're going to be building porta potties and septic systems. So it's a concern I have as a realtor. So that's all I have.
Thank you. You're always so good at kind of making excellent points, especially having been here before me. So thank you. Have the,
Thank you.
does, do y'all want to stay for the whole meeting? If you want to stay, great. We'd love to see you through the whole thing. If you want to take this opportunity to kind of move on, please feel free to do so. Oh. Nikki Skinner, did I miss one? Smith Jones.
We had 2 for Carl, that's why.
2 for Carl, yeah.
That's fine.
All right.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, next agenda item is response to previous comments. Do we have any of those?
We had no comments last time.
Okay, very good. Thank you. I have the consent agenda with the city council meeting minutes from August 4th, 2025. and the policy approval for the transit drug and alcohol policy update. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a mo-
motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilor Ramsayer and a second from Councilor Shellman to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Were we doing yours now or after the presentation? I think we're doing it after the presentation. Okay, very good. Presentation on the 2025 water management and conservation plan update. Welcome, AJ.
Hey, everybody, thanks for having me tonight. Presentation's a bit of a strong word. This is more just introducing this to the council for, so we can get some review. Our water conservation master plan is due for an update. This is a requirement by the Oregon Water Resources Department. Our last full document was created in 2016. This draft is due to the Oregon Water Resources Department by November 30th of this year. The document itself it addresses some of the council goals, including the completion of this plan and the exploration of a tiered rate structure for the future. Included in this document, we've got, some boilerplate information. We've got the description of the city's water system showing what we make, what we can store, how much pipe we have, things like that. A main focus, of course, is conservation of water, focusing both on public interaction for helping our citizens to reduce their water use as much as possible through xeriscaping, water reducing fixtures, things like that. And then on our side of things, it's also focused on water loss. So fixing leaks, repairing reservoirs, things of that nature. A major change that we have for this document is this document contains our curtailment plan as it's drawn out. During the Portland fires last year, 2 years ago, whenever that was, we realized that our curtailment plan was really focused towards drought, which makes sense living in this area and probably about the time it was created. But it was not well tailored for that exact scenario where the steps did not line up with what we were seeing, what was happening. So the curtailment plan that's included in this document is better suited for that. And of course, the drought situation, if that ever comes. With this document, I'm hoping to get comments from the council by September 5th, so we can determine if there is a need for a second meeting in September where we can bring the consultant to put this together and have a Q&A session for the public and for the councilors. With that, with the comments that are able to be addressed with this, we will submit a draft to Oregon Water Resources Department, and sometime probably early next year, we will be bringing this plan back to council for adoption once the comments from the Water Resources Department are addressed. At that time, or somewhere around that time, we will also need to update some code language for the curtailment plan so that our code matches what our curtailment plan calls for, and that basically gives the plan some teeth. Other than that, I'd like to open up if there's any early questions, but otherwise I'll talk to you guys via email and potentially in September.
Any questions?
I had just an observation. There is a lot of overlap between this and the master plan, which has to be, I guess. It's unfortunate that they have to duplicate that information. But other than that, it seemed adequate, it made sense. I read through it. It's like, okay. And the only real change for us, other than for a crisis or a drought or something, when we're actually executing the curtailment plan, is really exploring that tiered rate structure, which I think starts to address Carl's issue about, how do we handle rates for the fixed income and others and still allow somebody to have a golf course lawn if they want one in a fair and equitable way. So I like the idea that you pursue that one.
Thank you. And just to be clear, the purpose of this document is not to do that exploration for us. It's
Right,
supporting
just
it.
lays out the goal.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, I support that.
Excellent.
Is it every 10 years, AJ?
Yes, it's every 10 years, and in the interim, there's a 5-year update on the benchmarks that are laid out in the document.
I guess we shouldn't say that one of our strategies was to just raise rates so people would use less water. That's probably not, I shouldn't lead with that one, I guess.
It's conservation.
So one of the things that, yeah, the rate, what you call that?
Tiered rate.
Tiered
Tiered
rate.
rate. I was in Sisters a couple weeks ago and they, had, the little, I don't know, pouches or whatever that you could put in your toilet tank to reduce the amount of water. They had low, flow shower heads available to give out. And of course, as I know, we used to give out, rain barrels at the salt cleanups every year. And so we haven't really done that. I don't think people are aware of that option. And so really trying to kind of, get that going now, you know, rather than later would be great. And then the other thing that, came into play was when, Rochelle was looking at, you know, seeding the Cedar, Park. I kind of made her aware of some of it's called water warden and some other grass seed that uses fairly low, relatively low water, but it's still very durable, fairly green and things like that. And so, one of the options might be to consider, you know, like having the city buy a large amount of that stuff, but then making it available to folks that want to reseed their yard. With something that, you know, would use quite a bit less water. Or the rain gardens, there's, you know, obviously that's another thing that cities have done is encouraged designs of rain gardens and things like that. And maybe there's some grants or some prizes or something like that, some sort of partnerships, I guess is what I'm looking for, that could be developed to help provide some of those folks that want to pursue that alternative. So I'm really excited about where this takes us. It really, you know, that's kind of the key to getting some of these water rates down is just using more water. And I'm gonna say that for myself too, because it's I think when folks are irrigating and things like that, it's just too much. So
And for those that are listening, we do have low flow sink aerators and low flow shower heads available, as well as the rain barrels are still available upon request. We do not do the toilet tanks currently though, the toilet bags, I believe. Yeah.
okay, well, but we could.
We could.
Yeah, and so I think making that people aware that those things are available, you know, at our summer, you know, the swag we give out, or,
Yep.
you know, when we have our Longest Day Parkway and other events like that would be a great opportunity to kind of get those things out there and let people know about it. But thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I would just add one thing, semi-related, but not quite. We, you know, currently have the low income utility assistance program. Tyler Wallace is working on a proposed sort of revamping of that we'll be bringing back before the council as well. Right now, you know, it hasn't been touched since it was adopted in 2019, and so there's just some maybe better metrics we could be using in a different format and you know, applicability standards that we could be using. So we're working on how to best bring that back before the council in the next couple of months. So just keep an eye out for that as well.
Thank you. Great.
DJ, what was you said September 5th?
September 5th. That gives us a chance to determine if we need another council meeting or not.
So we should get comments to Tyler and Jeff?
Did you send the email to, I think you didn't. Am I wrong? We sent the plan to,
Just in this document.
Oh,
So
just-
I
okay.
can send it to everybody. You can send comments to me. Is that okay with you, Jeff?
I would
Tyler?
just, you don't have to send a plan because we all have it.
Right.
Just say, you know, here's what I want back by this date.
Yeah, just we'll send a correspondence.
Very
Okay.
Reply singularly, not reply all, please.
Right.
To avoid any serial meeting violations.
I think we should prioritize accordingly to, in the scheme of very important documents to our future. This is like the yearly rule. Is that fair? Okay. So we know where we're spending our time.
What we're trying to prevent is submitting something to state agency name that I can't recall now off the top of my head.
Water resources.
Thank you, Water Resource Department. And having their buy off and then coming back before the council and saying, hey, we're ready for you to adopt this, and then a slew of changes that don't.
But we
you
did
know,
have a
align.
consultant help craft.
Correct.
So we,
Yep, but this
so
is
we're just
just,
looking for any dumb mistakes.
we're trying to make sure
or-
that we're all on the same page before we get state approval and then bring it back for your final approval as the council. We don't want to have a bunch of repetitive and duplicate, you know, work by making minor modifications and then having to resend it back to the state and then bring it back to the council again. So this is kind of the you know, if there's a lot of issues, we'll have a work session. If not, we'll just take minor feedback and incorporate that.
I didn't read every word of the whole thing, but the tiered funding, tiered rate system, is that?
It's not
Explore.
It just says explore.
It's just a
Okay,
goal.
One of our
explore,
goals,
okay,
yes.
So, all right, so that'll be
Which
something
matched our
to
council
pursue.
goal.
Okay.
Matches a
I
council
just wanna
goal.
know how much.
And certainly, there's no viable path forward where we explore and recommend something that's gonna generate less rate revenue in total, right? I mean, those revenue projections we have are identified to meet our debt service coverage and all our debt service payments, so, I mean, that's just an important. We need to generate, the revenue we need to pay for all the debt associated with that.
That finance job go, can you?
Well, that was one of the concerns that I had heard, we had mentioned tiered rate structures in the past as well. You know, what's that gonna mean for,
Yeah.
you know, our financial plans, and sure, what it means is that people that use more water will pay more, right? I mean, that's what a tiered rate structure does, but it still generates the same amount of revenue for the entire utilities because you still have the same amount of debt service payments you have to make. So just an important sort of piece of that puzzle.
And I hope that we're doing a lot of public transparency and, you know, discussion about that on our website and all that, so that people can weigh in on that.
As we talk about tiered rate
I don't
structures, that
think
would
we
be,
prioritize that yet, so.
Great.
It's on our, way down our to-do list.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now. This would be the
Very good. Okay, time for our
special item.
OGEC serial
Thanks,
meetings.
And Josh for being here. So as a reminder, I don't even remember who the case was brought for, but one of the Salem. Mayor brought a case forward, or they were challenged because the mayor had reached out to individual council people individually. Polling, figuring out where they lean to kind of speed up an issue. And that went to OGEC. OGEC appears to be ready to make unless something's changed, they appear to be ready to make a decision that could be significantly impacting to our conversations, to the point where I passed Lindy on Sunday and she was like, I don't know if I can even talk to you. That was a little tongue in cheek, but the reality is the ruling is not final, but if it were to go to that extreme, it's insane in that it would prohibit any communication to some degree that we have around any topic that might possibly come forward to this body. And, you know, I don't know if you followed this, Carl's a former counselor, but can you imagine doing your job without being able to talk to anybody on here other than in this meeting, in this forum? Our meetings would be days long. Or alternatively, we would pretty much do nothing. And for that matter, that's why Taylor and I were out talking Friday. I feel like this is the potentially one of the biggest challenges to local government that I've seen or been aware of since I've been playing the local government space. It will completely undermine our ability to do our job and will effectively shift the power. And some might argue the effect would be different, but I think it shifts the power away from the elected council to an administration. Because they're just gonna have to do it all, because we're gonna be ineffective, because we can't make any big policy changes or promote any ideas. So I'm very, very concerned, and I think we need to be proactive on this. This is why I wanted to stick around. I don't know if what are our options, but I think we need to be very proactive at raising awareness of this issue to the governor's office and the people underneath that, so that there is the appropriate pressure directed OGC to be reasonable about, you know, let's not undermine the will of the people. People elected us to do a job. We need to have some ability to do that. If we were sitting here 5 years ago, with the consent decree pending and the EPA and DEQ and all this stuff, and we're like, we can't talk to each other, we'd still be sitting there without an agreement. There's no way we could have moved forward with that. I look at that as just a great example of why we have to have the ability to work and do something. Now, I'm not to the point for serial meetings, but we've always interpreted serial meetings. We've always made votes and decisions in here. That's appropriate. Not arguing against that at all. But let's be clear about what can and can't happen so that we can continue to do the political work that we need. So I'm looking for us to be proactive, even to the point of preparing for litigation, because this has to be challenged. It can't be allowed to sit. Lobbying to see if we can head it off in a direction that's feasible before it gets set in stone. And partnering, make sure that our other cities and entities are thinking along the same line. And if this means we gotta pony up money, they gotta pony up money to put the right amount of pressure so that when this goes, if it goes in, that we can have a litigation ready to go so that it can be stayed, so we can continue to operate, because we can't. We can't, I thought about it, I was like, you know, when Mayor Stan was here, he and I went back and forth about protesting issues, you know, and I was like, you know, once the courts decide, we gotta follow. And I still believe that, but this is an issue that hasn't been decided, it hasn't gone to court yet. Now's the time to be active. When Mount Hood, Legacy Mount Hoods tried to close their birthing center, we could all just sat by, but we got involved. We pushed, I contacted the governor's office, eventually found a staffer, she'd just been elected, there's total chaos there, but eventually found a staffer who was willing to hear it out. Figure out what to do, and then they applied pressure on the Oregon Health Department, who then ultimately broke that wide open, and then birthing center. So I think we need some sort of response like that, just way more coordinated than my little haphazard suits aggression with a couple other people. So that's what I'm looking
Yeah,
for.
do we want to hear from Tyler, Josh?
Can I ask you a quick question? Is it the OGC's final, do they get to decide? Or does it go to a court? I guess that's my question.
They get to decide.
It's an OGC decision?
Well, they get to decide how they interpret and apply the statute.
Right.
It could go to court from there.
Right.
I would expect that Salem would be the one to take it to court from there, since they're the ones with the
That's where I
Pending.
wanted to go with.
enforcement issue. I guess I'll jump in real quick. If you'd like. 100% agree. I don't think it's overstating things at all to say this is an existential threat to the local government, like way of doing business and the form of government. I will say, I don't know if this is comforting or not, but LOC is obviously deeply involved and focused on this issue because they recognize also that it's an existential threat. So I guess one thing that you are doing already is by paying dues to LOC, that's kind of the role that they play, is this kind of areas where all the cities are in the same boat. They can act in that advocacy role. They're doing that. Our firm has written a letter to the Oregon Government Ethics Commission. I'm working on a letter currently in my role as the president of the Oregon City Attorneys Association to the Oregon Government Ethics Commission about this. It's kind of an all hands on deck situation. I imagine if it does get to a situation where there's litigation happening, that there might be some sort of a legal fund that you could consider contributing to or joining as a plaintiff in a lawsuit. I don't know that necessarily Sandy needs to be the one to initiate the lawsuit at this time. Maybe wait and see how that plays out. But I guess generally speaking, agree with everything you're saying. One thing that it seems to me that we might end up needing here is going to be a legislative fix. And so having those conversations, setting that ball moving so that legislators all individually kind of understand the gravity of the situation, I think is a very important thing that you all could be doing as well.
I think that if I can piggyback off of that just quickly, I think the challenge of the legislative fix is if the timeline is anything similar to the food and beverage issue, we will be left in a really difficult position for 2 years before any meaningful work is actually done.
Not a feasible option.
Yeah.
I just wonder if somebody would quickly just restate what the actual problem is. So those people who are just maybe online for the first time or watching or weren't at the last meeting, didn't hear it, will understand what the issue is.
Sure, I'll try to do the super quick summary of a complicated issue. So Oregon Public Meetings Law requires that a body such as the City Council conduct all of its meetings in a noticed public meeting such as we're in right now. That's been the law for a very, very long time. It's also been understood and the law based on case law for a number of years and then codified through the legislature a few years ago, that serial meetings also violate that law. A serial meeting being basically a way that the city council, a quorum of the city council conducts a meeting outside of a public meeting without contemporaneously getting a quorum together. So you're either having, well, small group meetings and then shuffling information in between them or using an intermediary such as the city manager or city attorney to have that same effect. So you're basically having a meeting outside of it. Oregon Government Ethics Commission has recently taken a very expansive view of how a serial meeting could occur, such that if a quorum of members of the city council discuss that issue, even not sharing information amongst themselves, that could violate the law. So if Counselor 1 talks to Counselor 2, Counselor 2 talks to Counselor 3, and Counselor 4 talks to Counselor 5, so you don't even have an overlap amongst all of them, and none of them share anything with the others about what they talk to about the others. All of them would have violated the public meetings law. Even without knowing, and potentially with some of them not having had a conversation with anyone other than a single city councilor about what their opinion was.
Well, the other example was the media, talking with the media, and then the reporter goes ahead and writes some, article about what, Lindy had to say about such and such. Then you read the article, you read, and then that's some sort of a violation.
So that comment was made during a Oregon Government Ethics Commission training. They've since backed away from that
Oh, okay.
and said that you're
Thank
free to
God.
talk to the media, thankfully.
What about like social media though? What if you post something on social media?
Yes, social media. Social media was a very risky area for a serial meetings violation even before this. Because if one counselor posts something, other counselors read it. It's the same as if one counselor emailed the whole city council about something. So that is something to be very cautious about.
Josh, I have a question for you. What is the point, do you think, if you were to make a guess, why these changes are being implemented or suggested? It's very constraining. What is the goal to have this done?
So that's a difficult question to answer. I can't get in the minds of the people involved.
Right.
What I can say is
From
it
a
was
legal standpoint.
relatively recently that the Oregon Government Ethics Commission was given by the legislature the authority to enforce this law. And it had a change in leadership at the Oregon Government Ethics Commission. And so I think it may just be that the people involved are coming at this fresh and maybe without a robust understanding of how local government works, that is causing interpretations that are not congruent with reality, basically.
And then in your legal realm, if you've heard anything, what are you hearing? Are other cities our size, bigger than us, smaller than us, are they as discouraged by these implemented suggested changes as, do they understand?
Yes, this is I think every city, large and small, who's aware of this issue understands that this is like a code red emergency situation. It is alarming from, I've heard concern from some of the largest to the smallest cities. in the state.
That's why I'm wondering if there's any pressure that we can put from the governor's office to the OGC. I don't know if that's an issue.
Well, it sounds to me if the legislature is who gave them the power, then the legislature is who you talk to.
In 2 years.
Well, you
will
can still
say-
talk to them now.
I will say the governor appoints the members of the Oregon Government Ethics Commission.
Oh, there you go.
And so
They could be.
there is a role for the
Okay, I see
governor in addressing this issue as well.
There's a couple things. I was at the Oregon Mayors Association this weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And all the mayors expressed the same kind of concern of like, if they can't talk to their city councilors about, what are you thinking? What ideas do you have? What do you want to, it's very difficult to be a mayor and not have conversations to know where your counselors are at or what they'd like to see.
My suggestion, if you're talking to legislators, is to say, how would you do business as a legislature? So you cannot talk to your fellow.
Well,
Right.
I was just gonna ask, why aren't they held by these same ethics rules?
Great question. It is an open question that has not been resolved yet, whether in fact the legislature is subject to these same rules.
Yeah, seems like.
So that probably also maybe is a talking point. When discussing this with legislatures, is that this is not just a hypothetical, what if this applied to you? Maybe at some point, the Government Ethics Commission may say that this applies to you.
I remember reading when the food and drink thing came out, I was looking at I didn't know OJEC, these guys even existed, but I went and looked at some of their old meetings and they talked about serving lunch. Lunch will be served at such and such time on the agenda, yada, yada. And so, the idea that they are now, telling us that we can't have a spindrift at a city council meeting, it was just so ridiculous. And so it just feels like they're not living by the same regulations that they're trying to enforce on us. And so, but the other thing that I did hear about, for example, like if you all heard on Facebook and stuff about commercial use of farmland. Some law got passed this year about commercial use of farmland. And what happened was the law got passed, but there was a huge outreach to everybody about how this is going to affect your pumpkin patch trips and the corn maze or your, farm to table dinner or things like that. And it was just so overwhelmingly strong towards, we should allow these things to continue, that the governor has basically dropped that issue from going to rulemaking.
Yeah, I don't think it passed. It made it out of committee.
Well.
But she's taken an active role in.
Right.
In killing it.
My
which
understanding
I
is
think
it did pass, but there was, anyway,
so
so,
that's my-
but that's an example of where I think that, I don't want to have to wait 2 years for the legislature to get their act together. Because, we can't afford 2 years of this, being, muffled without it being able to talk to each other. So we need to kind of come up with something that works and clear. None of us have violated serial meetings laws that I'm aware of. We go to great pains not to do that. So those were the rules that I was under the impression were in place, and I think we need some help. So we need some dire, immediate correction.
Can we use Nellie to help get through the governor's office to make sure, and obviously we're just one city, but even if nothing else, to test the pulse and see if they're aware and find out what their take is on this.
I mean, I definitely think that there's a good opportunity here to kind of reach out and kind of maintain the relationships that we have built with the governor's office over the past few years. I mean, but I think also partnering with LOC and all the other cities. I mean, Sandy going at it on her own, I don't think is going to be ultra effective, but I do think that we can provide the support to help with our own unique legislators and the ones that we've built allies with over the years is definitely a good opportunity. And just kind of to piggyback on what your attorney was saying, I do think that these things kind of arise out of, there's always that one bad actor. And then a huge law that affects all of us, it, kind of impacts everything. And this is not the first time something like this has happened, but OGC is definitely one of the most stringent agencies when it comes to following, especially public meeting laws. But it's been an interesting agency to work with over the years. So
Their decisions, at least that I've watched, and I've watched them all in the last year and a half, are very, very, very efficacious at this point. I'm really concerned about the decisions I make myself personally. So I would supporting this through the LOC though. I don't think we have the funding ourselves to make that big of a push, but I like the idea of talking to the governor's office. I love the idea of supporting the LOC with it because it really puts a stranglehold, and I'm nervous to see what they decide. And even if we can go to an administrative judge later, that will help, but it's just going to delay our ability to do effective government if they make this decision like the way they're leading. So I would agree.
So
The concern I have about going to LOC is though with the food and drink thing, their proposal was to wait until they could change the legislature, which, and then, you know, we were all like, no, we need to get this changed right now, and we were able to kind of pass some, you know, ordinances that allowed us
LLC
to
needs
get
out
around
of
that.
slow gear.
Yeah, and so I mean, I'm okay with going with LOC, but I also want to make sure that they understand that this is fix this now, not wait for 2 years.
I will say in the conversations, I guess I'm not. There were certain things that were communicated by LLC to all cities. I think LLC in my conversations with folks there has recognized both on the food and beverage and on this, the importance of it and was coming at it in a multifaceted way. I think they're recognizing that advocacy with governor's office and OGC is necessary, but that ultimately the ultimate fix may require legislative action. And that there are also, of course, things that we could do, which we did here in Sandy, immediately to kind of address some of those concerns. I think that their kind of eye on the prize is the legislative fix to clarify this once and for all. But that doesn't mean that they're not also working on the other angles to kind of chip away at it in the meantime.
But to what they said, you know, the governor giving this committee that they supervise direction about this, is that an option to kind of tell them to back off some on?
I mean, that's a like unofficial back channel option.
I like those.
One more, I have a more
Thanks,
legal
Paul.
question for you then. If the OGC makes this decision, let's say they make that decision to enforce. And then somebody, we or somebody files with the administrative law judge to appeal it. Does the ruling become on hold, or is it still enforceable until the admin judge?
Right, so you will still need to be worried in the meantime about what OGEC is going to do in different cases. Right, so regardless of the case right now that's pending is the Salem case, but and that's the only one that we're aware of this time. But OGEC could bring a new case tomorrow against somebody in Sandy.
Right.
And so you're still gonna have to be. All the advice that we're giving right now is based on what we think OGEC might do based on how they're interpreting the law, not based on what we think the law actually is. And so that continues to be a threat.
And I think until they make their formal ruling, it's gonna be really difficult to figure out our exact next steps. I mean, conversations with, you know, your contacts at the Capitol or with our contacts in the governor's office, you know, those are easy steps that we can take as far as just sharing our concern around the potential ruling, is that the right term, ruling? From OGEC decision, thank you. But until we have like concrete language that says this is what we deem is a violation, we don't really know the best way to respond, right? Because is it going to take a legislative fix? Is there another workaround, like a resolution we can adopt that says in certain circumstances, meetings of 2 council members at a grocery store when you cross paths is acceptable? Like there's gonna have to be, we didn't know exactly what we're working with as far as, you know, how we.
It's a
determine next steps.
multi-pronged approach, and so I appreciate
Right.
the wait and see, and then we'll react in a formal sort of way. That we gotta do that. I'm not taking anything away from that. I'm just saying, can we get out ahead? And do we have council and mayor direction for Millie to engage and see what she can do?
Yeah. I think, is there a consensus to kind of
I mean,
push our,
Stand up for it.
yeah.
But just to reiterate, I mean, the fact that this was a state law, I think it was passed in 2023. I mean, realistically, the only way we're going to come out of this is with another statewide legislative fix. I mean, I'm not saying that, you know, it's ideal that it might take a bit longer,
when it
but I
was-
mean,
but the law was passed when?
I believe it was 2023 with what I was.
But
yeah.
So we've got 2
Certainly.
years under, all we need is a governor to say, we need to fix this.
I mean-
OGC, back off, we're gonna fix this, we're gonna get to the heart of it, you know?
In theory, yes. I mean, she's tried that on a multitude of things, including free preschool for all in Portland, and that backfired on her. But I mean, this is something that's more universal and a statewide issue. It's not kind of a
Right.
single micro focus Multnomah County issue. So
Well, just to see, what's really messed us up is the fact that, you know, the Salem case does seem like a violation of the serial meeting law. And you know, I can understand going after that, but then all the advice that came back to say, well, don't do this, don't do, you know, the interpretation of going way beyond that to more is kind of, how do we get that horse back in the barn?
And that's a good, I mean, these are good talking points with when we meet with our contacts, is just saying, look, you know, all these extra comments were made and it's, you know, definitely troublesome because it's kind of piling on to what might have not even been a topic of conversation. So.
Okay, well, got a lot of things
Thanks.
to do. Thank you so much for giving us that advice and. Okay, we have an executive session now.
So Mayor, just a quick logistical note before you read the script. So it's not often that we have an executive session in the middle of a regular meeting. So logistically, with your permission, I'd like to leave the Zoom meeting going, but what I will do is mute council chambers and leave the video off. So it'll be like, but the reason for that is otherwise the folks here in the audience will get kicked out and there's no way to let them back in.
Okay.
So just make sure everyone's
Okay, and can you
aware
put
of
a
it.
post on there saying we're in executive session, be back in a few minutes or
I
something?
can arrange that,
Do
yeah.
we need to clear out
Okay.
Yeah, well,
in there for folks here, are they part of this or?
no, we'll need to clear, yeah.
Right. And so folks,
Sorry.
we are going in an executive session on a particular topic related to ORS 192.
And Sally,
602M.
Hey, Nellie, are you sticking around or are you leaving?
If you want me to stick around.
Just,
I don't hear.
okay, good. Well, that's the only reason I ask is that if people wanted an update, I was just gonna propose that she give it now so she can
Oh,
leave.
sure, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Lori. Let's go ahead and get your update real quick.
Yes.
Back in the hot seat, Nelly, thanks.
You know, it's getting quite comfortable, actually. No, you know, no real giant update other than the transportation package. As you can imagine, we have the special session that will be called on August 29th. The Republicans, as of today, are saying that they're likely not going to pass the rules suspension, meaning that it's going to take 3 days to read through the transportation package in each chamber. It was already understood that the Senate wouldn't have a quorum, so it would happen. It has to constitutionally start in the House. The Senate wouldn't have a quorum until Saturday, so it was going to at least be a 2-day session. Has the potential of being a 6-day session. Everyone's playing games. If I were looking into my crystal ball, I would assume something will pass, but I mean, there have been lots of negotiations about getting enough Republicans in, and it just depends on what the political insiders have to say. As far as I'm hearing, the gas tax is still looking like it's going to be the 50-30-20 split, which is important, obviously, to the city. But it's just going to be an interesting process. I will happily provide you with an update when it's all over, but I think it's going to be kind of a guessing game until then. But it's all coming along, so.
Just to be clear, did they have to negotiate all together in one room?
Yeah, sure.
Very valid question after our last conversation. I mean, yes, they will be on the floor, but I mean, all of these conversations have been happening obviously behind closed doors, and the entire last long legislative session, everything was done behind closed doors, and we got the bill 2 weeks before the last day of session. So yeah, I know it's too soon for that. I get it. Yeah.
Yes, I say not as I do.
But yeah, if any of you have any particular questions about any piece of the bill, please feel free to reach out to me, and it won't affect public records laws because I'm not elected. But I'd be happy to either, if I don't know the answer, get the answer for you for any specific detail, or if you have any particular concerns, please let me know. So.
And our $1 million grant from the feds is still in play?
Yes.
Still several.
When did they give you a date?
They did not give a date certain. It was several months out at the time. I think we're probably still 8 or 10 weeks out before that.
Before October?
We'll touch wood on that one, but.
Yeah, well, I'll
Okay.
circle back and see. But we were on the list, but nothing happens with said list for several weeks. So, yeah.
If you think the state government works slowly.
Okay.
Anyway, thank
Well,
you all
for
so much.
help.
But again, please reach out to me if there's anything you need. You know how to get a hold of me. So
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris.
Ordinance 2025-17 as it was in existence for the first reading is attached to the staff report. Would apply to commercial and industrial land. It would allow porta potties, gray water systems, other systems. So for example, septic tanks, but it would not allow, a big box store or commercial that frequently sees members of the public. That would not fit into the criteria around the ordinance. And so post first reading of the ordinance, there was some questions, and then I think there was some confusion. And so staff wanted to bring this back and have a discussion to make sure we're all on the same page before we bring back an ordinance for a second reading. So what we tried to do is address sort of three different options, maybe like a Goldilocks and Three Bears type approach. And also respond to any questions that we received over the past couple of weeks from that first the first reading of the ordinance. The responses to questions are provided in the packet. There was also a subsection of finance-related questions that are included in the staff report under budget impact. That just gives a pretty, wide range, but two examples of a small industrial business versus a large big box type store, utilizing some assumptions and the best information that we have on hand from similarly sized businesses in town or similar uses in town. So certainly I don't want you to think that any of the numbers that are presented here are, hard and fast. It would be this and only this number. They're subject to change, big old, disclaimer there, depending on the actual land use application that we get. Ultimately, we've got these three different options presented in front of you this evening for consideration. I'm going to sort of go out of order and say option number 2 is the ordinance as you saw it the first time. Going backwards, option 1 would be a bit more restrictive in that it would only apply to or likely only apply to industrial land and would only allow porta potties and gray water systems. It would not allow other alternative treatment solutions. And going back to earlier conversations and how this whole sort of topic of alternative treatment solutions or alternative treatment systems evolved was really geared towards one property owner who had industrial land that was looking for a path forward. And so option 1 would accommodate situations like that, right? These very specific type uses that don't see members of the public would be able to reuse nearly all of the water that they're using in their normal business operations. And then you've got option 3, which is much broader in scope. So it would be potentially allowed on commercial and industrial land, all the same, porta potties, gray water, septic systems, but would also be expanded to retail spaces that are open to the public. So a larger big box type store. I think there was a handful of people that expressed interest or thought that the ordinance as it was previously read fell into that category. It did not. So now, we have a path forward. If that is the consensus of the council to move forward with an option like that, we could certainly do so. I'm going to pause here and I guess just open it up to questions. I'll kick back to you, Mayor, just to see if we're if you are at a place where you have any questions yet, or if we want to keep hashing out sort of what could and couldn't go somewhere. I think from my standpoint, we're not answering, specific businesses and businesses by name, right? But we're talking about uses, right? A large commercial property or a small industrial complex or what have you.
I have a question if you don't read it. Is in the draft that we read last time, as I read through it, and then I was thinking about everything that we talked about. The one thing that was going through my mind was not having those alternate systems in there for their life. Is there a way that we can put language in that would force a business that went into that property with an alternative system that forced them to pay the SDC at the time when the connection became available and forced them to do it?
So the ordinance as written does that for porta potties. Does not do that for gray water.
Right.
And then allows the city council to determine which bucket is applicable. Is it like the porta potty or is it like gray water for anything else? We could provide more clarity on that. More categories. You have a lot of options as far as
Because I
when you
think
want to.
that was the argument I heard a lot
Yeah,
about,
but-
was not getting the SDC fee and not having an alternative system in there for 25 years. So how do we mitigate that factor? And that would be.
Just a clarifying question. You know, y'all talk about porta potty and gray water. And black water is kind of the thing that's, you know, I don't quite understand because a septic tank is black water and gray water. So I'm confused why, what the direction is on that.
So there's 3 categories in the existing ordinance. There's one for porta potties, which have to be immediately removed and connected as soon as the city tells them.
90-day notice.
Right. Gray water is, the concept was, that's something that should be able to remain in place for the useful life of the system. It's a bigger investment. There's no reason to immediately tear something out that's functioning properly. Let it stay until the system is exceeded its useful life. And the third category is the catch-all for anything else, because we don't know what else somebody's gonna propose. Does the city council believe, when that's being proposed, that this is something that needs to be torn out immediately when we tell them to connect, and they have 90 days to connect? Or do they believe this is something that can remain in place for the useful life of the system? And the city council would determine on a case-by-case basis, depending on what the proposal is. So, for example, one of the other ideas that we've heard about from, I think it was Mr. Gambino, was a composting toilet. That's not gray water, that's not a porta potty, it'd fall in that third category. Is that something that the city council would want to remain in place for its useful life or be torn out and immediately connect? I suspect you would see that as more like a porta potty, and then they should immediately tear that out and connect when the city has told them there's capacity available. Septic system maybe would fall into
Useful life.
maybe. And then there's maybe other systems that we haven't even thought of. And so the idea with the third category was as that catch-all. We can add more categories for more types of systems if you want.
Yeah, my question all stemmed around the enhancement of making a person that spends the extra money to put alternative in, but saves the money on SDC. But when we do, when that connection becomes available, that they have to pay the SDC at that time and force them to connect, meaning their gray water or septic or whatever they have becomes useless to them because we don't want it there eventually. We don't want that to be there. And that's just their cost of business to go in early.
That's an
Yeah,
option.
so I don't agree with that.
I'm just asking.
Yeah. Oh, okay, you're just asking.
That
Okay.
is legally an option.
Okay.
The question for you always whether that makes sense from a policy
Yeah,
perspective.
Right.
see, I,
That's legally.
yeah, no, totally, I hear that. Yeah, I don't agree with that, and the reason being is that if I own a business and septic tanks are not cheap, that's an investment.
Mhm.
And so I'm not comfortable, nor would I ever be in favor of saying, hey, you put the septic in and oh, by the way, now 70 days later, we have available connections. You have to tear that septic out and connect.
Yeah.
So
It's too much
useful
work.
life, yes, but also recognizing that on a case by case basis, this stuff is gonna come back before council, so we need to keep that in mind, so. Anyway,
It's too much uncertainty to Lori's point.
yeah,
And do we need to add language that says, now that we're talking about these 18 ERUs or the 190 or whatever, if Rogue Manufacturing gets the go-ahead, do we need to add language that says, if you are able to get the needed ERUs currently, the alternative systems are off the table?
So I guess the way I have been conceptualizing this was that the developer is going to want to do one or the other.
Okay.
Right? They're going to choose the path that makes the most sense to them. If both paths are made available to them,
Right.
they're either going to, I mean, another option for city council, of course, is don't do this at all.
Right.
But yeah, if you make both paths available to them, then they're going to choose whichever one fits their project the best.
so just before we go too far down this road, we had an executive session and things were talked about in executive session.
We are back in open meeting,
We're back
open
in
session
open
now.
meeting,
Yep.
open session,
Gonna be
okay,
mindful and
Mindful
careful
of
of
that
the
conversation.
previous discussion.
So there are other options out there to get some development proceeding quicker than this. The concern I have about this is that if the intent is to allow quick development of certain parcels, first of all, everything on here belongs in Title 13. I don't understand why our discussion about wastewater systems is in Title 17 to begin with, because there's a whole lot of Title 13 that doesn't seem to mesh with, this says that we have to meet Title 13, which is all our wastewater direction, and yet then it proceeds to say all these exceptions, and I can't quite make heads or tails about that. But the other concern that I have is that the septic tanks that people want to leave in for good become our responsibility to oversee, monitor, and we don't have the people to do the work that we have already. So to take on the potential, and I realize that we would have to be voting on each one of these, but my concern is taking on a lot more responsibility for this. I can see doing this maybe down the line where we don't have any other options, but I want to also have the ability to kind of narrow when and where this gets used, and I want to have the option to, I mean, really, the reality is that DEQ and the county are going to be the ones to say yes to this or not. And they haven't been part of providing this, developing this code, which makes me very concerned. They have to be part of developing this code, because I want to know when they're going to be approving it and when they're not. And for us to sit here and write this code that says, sure, you can put septic tanks in, and they may say, no, we don't want to be, approving, 30 septic tanks. And I don't know if it's me 30 or 3, but, but pretty much what we're saying here is that, the sky's the limit as long as they approve it. And so that's where I don't really have a good handle on how much of a solution this is versus how much of a hindrance this is to making sure that we're having a good partnership with the county and DEQ that's going to be involved in approving these ultimately.
So I think to your point, and you bring up some good points. But to your point, I guess the way that I look at this is that this is we have no connections, right? This is an option instead of, because we don't have ERUs available, right? So at maybe a later date or whenever it may be. And so this would be an option that somebody would have, especially for commercial development, potentially down the road. But I feel very comfortable with this on a couple of reasons. One, because again, case by case, it's going to come before whoever is sitting up here at the time. And yes, it still would have to be approved, obviously, by the county, right? And so you've got those checks and pieces there. I would feel better getting this in motion so that it can be utilized down the road, like say beyond the 190 ERUs, so that a council down the road is not sitting there trying to figure something out. In the interim, we have something in place. They can choose to use it or not.
Question though, are you familiar with the Hawaii case? There was something about I don't know if it was Maui or whatever, but it had to do with the Detroit stuff of where they were being told they can't do septic tanks, and Lori, please. They can't do septic tanks and they couldn't do the sewer treatment plant. So are you familiar with any of the recent case law that has kind of come out about that? Because that got mentioned at the mayor's conference and I didn't know.
I guess I'm still not understanding what you're
thinking about after the fires.
I don't know if it was a case and
You're talking about Detroit.
LLC was
Oregon?
talking about the Hawaii case
Okay.
that affected cities like Detroit's ability, that were under the 3 basin rule and all that.
Right.
To do septic tanks, that they couldn't do the septic tanks and they couldn't do the sewer treatment plant. And so that got discussed there, and I still don't have a good handle on whether or not we're on solid ground moving forward with this. My other question though is that, okay, so if we say, if we decide, okay, somebody's gonna come to us, I'm confused about the order. Okay, so a business wants to come And do they get permission from us to move forward with this alternative wastewater system and then go to the county? Or do they go to the county first and then come to us? Anybody have?
The county won't process anything without our approval or denial before that.
But an applicant should be working with the county in advance of acquiring land or moving forward with any project to make sure that they do have
Yes, but-
some viability.
Yes, but they have to fill out what's called a land use compatibility statement, and then AJ and I have to review it. And then that goes to the county, and if we say there is no sewer connection available, then they can move forward with the septic system. That's how it always works.
However, I was talking with the county last week, early this week, sometime recently, and they would allow somebody to perform a feasibility study, which would then be approved by the county. So basically, any septic system, there is a series of test pits, they're dug on the plot, on the property, and then infiltration is determined, and then they can say, yes, this property is suitable for septic, or no, it's not.
Okay, but they
That
have to
get-
have an existing
that-
drain field and a replacement drain field and have all the setbacks in place for both of those drain fields,
No
correct?
matter what, those three things will always apply. No, I did not ask specifically if the intent was our situation, which is effectively a temporary septic system, if a secondary drain field location is required. I can get clarification from the county on that, but the setbacks, all those will still apply. The soil feasibility will apply, and that can be done before an applicant has land use.
But a secondary drain field's required.
Currently, yes, I'm just curious, I didn't think to ask, but it may not be because theoretically, at least, when that first drain field fails, we'll be done with all this and there will be a sewer lateral available. I can ask and see if they have any input on that.
We don't have the condition of approval based on an available ERU.
Yeah.
The way it's written right now.
Right.
Right now, it really gives the developer the choice.
Correct.
But we could choose to add that as a condition of approval. Is that there has to be 0 available ERUs in order to enact this option. And then that's the only time it could be used.
Well,
Yeah, so-
currently, that is the case.
Legally speaking, yes, and then again, like my previous answer, policy decision
Right,
free
right,
will.
right, right.
I mean, one conversation we had earlier was about, who knows, last time about the ERUs are a finite resource. There's only certain types of development that would make sense with this. And so perhaps even if you have ERUs available, you may want certain developments to use an alternative treatment system to preserve those ERUs for other, but that's a decision for you all to make. Mayor, I want to respond to your question. I guess maybe this is just different ways of conceptualizing what the purpose of this ordinance is. It is the only thing that the city can do is remove obstacles at the city level. These developments will still need to comply with state and federal law and any regulatory requirements and permitting requirements associated with those laws. And I think it's routine for particularly industrial developments that, and I guess a lot of other types of developments too, that they understand that getting city land use approval is only one of the many boxes they have to check in order to complete their project. So if you have a factory, they have to get land use approval. They are gonna have to get some sort of air quality emissions approval from the state as well. They may need to get some wetland related approvals. There's a lot of different permits they have to get from a lot of different agencies. They will still need to do that if they're doing a septic system or whatever other type of system they want, if it requires some other type of permit. This is just about whether from the city's perspective, the city wants to allow it if they can get all the other approvals that they need.
Well, from where I sit, my concern is that this has the appearance of allowing developers to not have to pay SDCs and utility rates, which means that the residences have to pay more or will be, stuck with the tab. It's kind of a
But not if we institute something like what Chris said, where it's only if there are no ERUs available.
Right, doesn't say that, yeah.
No, but I would be in favor of adding that. I think that's a great
I
thing
like
to
to know
add.
ERUs available.
Yeah,
I
I think
like
that's
the
a great thing to add.
options. And I think to cut to the chase, Mayor, I think you're not in favor of septic in the city limits, and there's a lot of good reasons for that.
Yeah, we're.
But I think you're at your time.
Well,
Just,
I'm not saying I'm not in favor of that. I'm just saying that I don't see that as a need right this second, or
Well,
this week, or this
Well,
month.
but it takes
so-
months to get these ordinances out there. These developers, they need certainty.
Some assurances so
You
they
know,
can get funding.
I think this gives them a path. It's not an ideal path. I mean, we just identified a number of potential red
And they
flags.
still
down
need
this
all the
path.
approvals.
Right. But it's a path that they could maybe take to the bank.
Yeah, the comments that there was enough loopholes in this that I could drive a log truck through some of
But
it.
that's why we're getting,
That's why-
it sounds like the
Okay,
second
let me
reading's
finish
not
what I'm
gonna
saying,
happen.
because I didn't finish and I got interrupted, is that there's a lot of loopholes in this. And my preference is to make sure all those loopholes are closed before we pass it. But I understand I may be outvoted, so again, I'm not anti septic tank, I'm just making sure I want, if we're doing code, I've seen enough code in this town. Where our intent was this, but this happened instead, and so.
I
I
want to
just-
understand better what circumstances or what restrictions you want to see to allow us a septic, because my read on what we've heard so far is that you don't want a septic. And like I said, that's a fine opinion or position. But if you are to have a septic, what restrictions do you think we should have on it? What tightens up the code?
And if it's case by case, then
I mean, I think that's where we're getting to.
Well, you kind of, that's my concern is that what does the county look at when doing approval for septic? For example, if it's industrial, is it better to have, if an industrial thing is doing a septic, how are they taking care of their industrial waste? Is that,
But
is
isn't
that,
that their jurisdiction to figure that out?
it's up
Do
to
we
the
have to
counties.
define that in our code?
no, because you have stuff in here that talks about that the city will take over some of that responsibility.
I missed that.
I
line
missed that
somewhere.
too.
Enforcement in addition to and not in lieu of enforcement, blah, 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 is,
I think that we at one point talked about a provision, maybe it was in there about if somebody failed to maintain it. Did we have a provision in there to cover that?
That, I think,
Is that
yeah,
what
we
you're
talked,
referring to?
I think that might have been the side conversation that we had, but, yes, we could theoretically add code if we wanted to put more.
I can't hear you.
We could theoretically have code if we wanted to have more stipulations than what the county would require. But these will, as they sit, remain in county jurisdiction. If there's a septic system in Clackamas County, Clackamas County is in charge of it.
And we've already been denying applications for a septic, for connections to our system for the last 3+ years. So this is nothing new. I filled out at least probably 10 or 12 Luxes that say we don't have sewer legally available in our cities, so you have to allow a septic tank to be replaced and repaired. And in every one of those cases, I believe the county has allowed it. And so this would be no different than that. If you guys pass the ordinance with it even saying that no ERUs available, well, that is what it is today. There's no ERUs available right now. So on the Lux form, I would fill out just like I have been for replacement septic systems, that we have no ERUs or connections available, and therefore they could apply for something else. It'd be the same thing.
Josh, a question about ERUs. If we have available ERUs, but we have a stipulation in this that says you can only do this if we don't have ERUs, does the developer have a case to ask for a variance to go around that from us? So let's say we have 18 ERUs available and this guy comes in and says, I want to build my industrial complex with a septic on this piece of property. And I mean, we're saying you can't do that because we've got this line in there. Can they ask for a variance around that?
I mean,
because maybe they have good case for it.
correct me if I'm wrong, Kelly, the city has kind of a catch-all variance procedure where you can vary from any development code provision, but you have to meet certain
Right,
criteria,
right.
and those criteria are rather discretionary. So that would come before you
It
as
would
well.
come back
Have
in
those
front,
types
right?
of
It'd be a
discretionary.
case by case scenario, right?
It would actually only go before the planning commission.
That part would go before the plan, but it would have to be lumped in with this application, which has to go to. the city
If we
council.
adopted this.
Oh, true, right.
Yeah.
I just wanted to know if that was a caveat, so I
It's
was
a
thinking about
possibility.
from my planning commission days, how that would work with somebody off the comment you said, who it might be somebody we want to have a septic on their system on a piece of property, but we have ERUs, and how do we get around that?
I think for my office, it'd be very hard to define if an ERU is available.
I wrote that down at row. It sounds like there might be consensus for no ERUs available. We need to flesh out what does no ERUs available mean.
Right.
So if that is the direction, we can loop back on that, but that's. What does available mean? When is it determined whether it's available? Is it when they submit the application? Is it? Right.
And just to try and move this forward so that we get somewhere, because we've now discussed this 3 or 4 meetings. I'm totally fine with moving forward with option 3, if that gives you direction. With all of the other things that we've added in this discussion, which I've seen you feverishly writing down over there.
Yes. I had to go back and remind
That's fair.
myself what option 3
Yep.
was. That's the expanded one, commercial and industrial.
So commercial, industrial, including all businesses where the public is generally received.
Commercial and industrial.
Commercial and industrial. Okay.
With all the caveats that we've already talked about.
Mhm.
If there's available ERUs, no. Comes before us, they gotta have a plan, it's viable.
Case by case, it's gotta
Gotta
go
get
through
all
the
the other
county, all
approvals.
that other stuff, yep.
Well, I mean, just to push back on that a little bit, it might not have to go through the county because it could be a porta potty system,
Fair,
right?
That's
And
fair.
that's not gonna have to go through the county.
that's fair, but it's still case by case,
And
but yes,
Well, gray water stuff.
And we can keep those out 90 days
yeah,
in writing.
So again, just in the interest of, I'm walking the fine line of policy versus law, but just in the interest of making sure that everybody is understanding what it is that we're talking about, before moving something forward. Option 3 would mean any type of commercial or industrial use with the existing criteria that we have. That would mean that if somebody comes in and they want to put in a Chipotle with porta potties, that would be allowed.
well, they still have to come before council and get approval.
Right.
And
But-
council could say, no, we're not approving that for this.
Well, we have much more discretionary criteria for something other than porta potties and gray water. For the porta potties and gray water is designed to be much more streamlined. And so in reading through those criteria, they're not nearly as discretionary. And so I think in most cases, you're probably going to find that you'd be approving the porta potties for just about anybody that.
Will the health
submitted that.
department actually approve that?
No.
I don't know. that
And
they
it
do.
doesn't meet the building code either.
Well,
I think they might, is the scary thing,
for
because
an
we
internal
actually,
building?
yes, because we
Okay.
reached out to them and they said, as long as you can meet, what was it,
I want to see the
OSHA
emails. I want to see
regulations.
the emails on that, Kelly, because
I mean,
this doesn't meet the bill. Kelly, Terry takes us down for any small little violation of the building.
no, you would put it in 88 porta potties, Mayor.
But that, you
Nobody's
can't
gonna
run
do
a
that.
permanent business with a porta potty.
You're asking if the county would have an issue with it from correspondence that AJ and I have gotten from them, they did not seem to care. And
So-
OSHA, and they said as long as it meets OSHA regulations, then they didn't really seem to
So,
care.
so let's test something, because I feel like we've just moved into a gray area
Yeah.
that none of us want.
Yeah,
So potentially, Josh, can we put some more discretion in that?
Language
option
in there?
3 So that
that's up to
we
you
don't end up
guys.
with more porta potties in restaurants, heaven forbid.
Can we just apply that
So-
discretionary
Right,
language
we
to
can
everything?
essentially
So can-
apply that discretionary criteria to all.
To everything, and
That
then
would be-
everything would go to the council.
That would be fantastic.
Yes. Is that okay?
Thank you, Don. That was the easy solution.
We'll have meetings every day.
There will not be that many of these.
Okay, I
No.
didn't hear everything because you were facing up.
Mayor, let me summarize. So what we're proposing is the discretionary part that we were going to use on these more complicated properties. We're gonna apply it to every use of the alternative wastewater, which means anybody, Chipotle, heaven forbid, wants to come in with a porta potty, they're gonna come to council. And if council approves it, shame on them, right? You know? So we keep that discretion everywhere there, therefore we look, every one of them's a case by case. It gives us a lot of flexibility.
Okay, so are you making a motion to,
No motion, because it's a work session. They were asking for direction. I
Yeah.
was just clarifying what Lori and I had kind of landed on.
okay, well,
Yeah.
because I was
There's
also
no
told-
motion. Yeah.
Excuse me, but I was also told to bring back the second motion on the original.
Yeah, at this
So-
point, I think my request to bring back that original second reading is now blown, and we should probably go back with a full public hearing and
Yep.
a new.
Which I thought was kind of the purpose of this, is to reevaluate.
Okay, so there's a
We will
motion
still-
on the table to, what,
No motion.
remand, or what do you say? What's the word?
Well, go ahead.
What's the process?
The posture we're in right now is that the first reading was conducted and approved. We're supposed to bring back a second reading.
Yes.
We're getting a lot of direction about changes that the council would like to see. So the way I'm envisioning this playing out is we're gonna bring back that second reading. It's gonna have the original ordinance and an alternative based on all this feedback. And because council's gonna want to take a lot of things into consideration that weren't part of the record in that first hearing, you're gonna have to reopen the hearing and conduct a new public hearing, and then you can vote on it.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
So in the interest of clarity again,
Give us a script.
the direction that I'm seeing here is all commercial industrial, we're getting rid of that language about public generally received. We are no longer having two different paths, one for gray water and porta potties and one for everything else. It's gonna be one path. The discretionary criteria will apply to all of them. One of those criteria was the very discretionary one about taken as a whole, not materially detrimental or injurious to the public welfare or the surrounding area. The other one is about being a target industry in the economic development strategic plan or otherwise advances the goals of the economic development strategic plan. Do you want both of those to apply to every application? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Well, those two criteria are the two, two that you could drive a log truck through. Would you agree?
So I guess.
I'm asking the lawyer,
It-
or not. You could
So-
drive a log truck or not, if you wanted to.
So I guess it depends on who is driving the truck in your scenario.
City
Because
council.
it's not the applicant, it's the city council that is getting to interpret what that means. And in a non-residential context, land use criteria do not have to be clear and objective, and LUVA will defer to any reasonable, plausible interpretation of a city's code that is made by the city council. So city council gets to decide how you interpret that, as long as you're not doing it in an arbitrary and capricious way, as long as it's reasonable and plausible. LUVA will say, they said that's what their code means, that's what their code means.
Okay, well,
So by leaving that in there, we get to interpret it at the time of an applicant.
but the reason we've had so much discussion about all this is we're all interpreting things different. And when I'm looking at a code and whether to say yes or no on something, I like pretty clear and clear and objective code to say yes or no, this doesn't apply. And those two criteria, basically, economic development stuff and is basically everything industrial or commercial. With or without the public visiting or stuff. So it's basically everything. And again, or the first one is whether it's injurious to the, whatever.
Right, so if you,
That covers
if that silly example of a fast food place comes in, they want to use porta potties, can you read that injurious, whatever?
So I'll read that to you again, here, just 1 second.
It says the alternative wastewater system proposal, taken as a whole, is not materially detrimental or injurious to the public welfare or the surrounding area.
I mean, I'm gonna,
And I want to-
any sane person's gonna argue that porta potties for a restaurant are
Injurious.
And I want to put that language in context too. Because here's one of the criteria that you have in your current code for granting a variance. The variance authorized will not be materially detrimental to the public welfare or materially injurious to other property in the vicinity. So it's the same kind of concept that the city's already using for things like a variance, which I think by and large, most cities feel has to be more discretionary. This could certainly, you could certainly make this clear and objective if you wanted to, but you don't have to. And so I guess that's a policy question again for council is, do you feel like this is something that should be discretionary or something that should be more spelled out in black and white?
I would say discretionary because we don't know what's coming. It accounts for all of the unknowns.
B3.
Is there a, sorry, I'll try to talk loud, but I'm pointing my head this way. Is there a middle road approach of like a matrix? Doesn't guarantee anything, right? But does the project advance economic development, create jobs, not within X vicinity of residential, I don't know, list 7 or 8 things that could be as a guide, but not a
I want to see
determining
that
factor.
staff report. not
One
the-
person.
Well, that's, we would create something and bring it back before the ordinance is adopted, but I'm trying to see if.
Yeah.
Trying to
There, yeah.
play to the group here, right? Is there a middle of the road approach that helps provide some guidance, but not a black and white?
Legally speaking, the world is your oyster when it's non-residential. You could have a clear and objective path. These things are met, it will get approved. And then also the catch-all discretionary, which is kind of what we tried to do with the existing ordinance, with certain types of systems would have a more straightforward path and the others would be more discretionary.
I kind of like it being a little bit broad, because again, if it's gonna come before council under the criteria that you've already listed, I don't want us to get so wrapped into dialing down on criteria that we have something that we want to approve and can't. So.
Rich, do you have any comments?
I just had a question for you, like, so the hesitation behind like full approval authority, what's the hesitation? Why not keep it broad and then allow us all of the approval authority? Okay, I'm just trying to understand the hesitation. That I don't know where I said. But
Well, I mean, we've made a lot of changes to it, so your comment, Chris, about, that they can do it if there's no ERUs available, that's something that takes the load off. I don't believe that, anybody's gonna let us open a Chipotle with porta potties, honestly, and if they are, we should be shot and.
I mean, I just don't think Chipotle would want to open up.
Right, yeah, exactly, and so, but, the whole use of porta potties was just intended as a very temporary thing, of a few months, and all that. I mean, I don't even like the ones we have down in the.
Send them, yeah.
And so, just again, kind of narrowing the options, and then when it comes to the sewer treatment plant the septic tank stuff. If that's, the only option and it's legal with the county and they're okay with it, then I guess, I don't have a big problem with it. I think if that's our option when we run out of ERUs and we still have a few years, I would like to be a little bit more, look at it on a larger scale basis of like, where can we do, instead of every, that's what's happening in Detroit. They're not able to get everything done that they want because each commercial business has to have their own septic tank and the existing drain field and the replacement drain, and nobody has enough property. And so, to the extent that they could kind of combine these 10 properties and the city buy some land or whatever and get some land so that they can kind of get to it, seems like a better approach to taking care of that need. So I'm very supportive of commercial development, but I am concerned about how we go about, I just don't want to see septic tanks going left, right, and center. So, and I think it's just a political suicide to do that. And then that means that the residences have to pay, that we have to kind of make up the utility rates and the SDCs elsewhere because we still have to pay for these loans. Does that answer it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So in the interest
Is
of
there-
making,
So let me just, option 1, 2, or 3, what could you guys gotta go around and say real quick, what you're looking at? I heard you say 3.
Three with the
Modification.
with the addition.
Yeah.
3 with the modification.
Okay, done?
Yeah, the 3 with the modifications. we're
Okay.
talking about.
All right.
can we clarify what the modifications are, just to be really,
I think it's-
I hate to have to do another one of these.
I've got a Jeep outside that goes in reverse.
So, because we're gonna apply the same criteria to every type of system, we're gonna get rid of any distinction based on system type. So we're not gonna be even having to define gray water or porta potties anymore.
Oh, how nice.
All of these wastewater alternative systems will follow the same process.
Yes.
So I'll get to clean up the definitions, that's great. All commercial industrial projects, regardless of public being received or not, but they're all subject to the discretionary criteria path. And then we have this concept of no ERUs are available.
Yes.
Now, to no ERUs are available, does that mean?
Or insufficient number of ERUs.
Right, right. Yep. So, insufficient.
And I would
They
also.
can't get them. I don't know what that means.
Can't get them, does that mean they can't get them?
Or they
Five.
need 10 and we only have 4.
Now, does that include if they could purchase them from another private property owner?
No, if they
No,
can, to me,
but
if they can obtain them, they can obtain them.
They can only obtain them from the city.
Well, if they can go buy them, they're gonna go buy them. You can't force them to go buy them. So that would get kind of weird.
Right, so like, right, I guess here's the question. Right now, are no ERUs available?
Yes,
Even though they could theoretically purchase some from a private property owner?
yes.
Okay. So no ERUs are available from the city
Is that
for this
fair?
Yes.
project?
Well, today, but.
Well, I
in the
like
next-
Well, but that's what he's
insufficient better
asking.
than none. I
Yeah.
like
Insufficient.
insufficient versus none better
Yes.
Yeah.
because
It's the same idea.
Yeah.
it is, but
But
it's.
we're not
Means they
gonna
don't have
count-
enough.
It's
We're
a
not gonna
broader
count
view.
things.
They cannot get enough
Yeah.
ERUs for this
For that
project
project.
from the city.
Yes.
Right.
And it is at the time that they are making their application to get approval for the alternative waste. water
But if they
system.
could buy them from, if they're available for sale somewhere else, is that a,
Where are those ERUs?
We have no
normally
control
allocated
over that.
in
I don't want to
application?
put that in code.
No.
all right. And then the criteria, I want that it's legal to do it. I mean, I know that it's, I'm just
And
gonna,
it clarifies that all the appropriate approvals have to be obtained.
right, but I, yeah,
Wouldn't that be in the C of, or in the final order, no C of O will be issued unless all other
So one of the
applications
criteria,
are satisfied?
one of the criteria currently is the proposed alternative wastewater system complies with all applicable federal, state, and local laws.
Beautiful.
Does that capture it?
So the one thing, because I'm the one that's gonna have to intake these, so I'm just gonna be very honest here. The insufficient or the available thing,
I can't hear you, Kelly.
the insufficient or available clause. I might say they're not available, and then it might get to city council, and you guys might determine that there are some available. I wanna be,
Because time lapsed and something happened.
Are we just
or-
what ifing everything to death?
or
I think so.
you might define what available or insufficient is
I
differently.
think
than-
Josh is gonna.
That's fair, I
define it.
think, but I think at that point, though, we can sit there and deny it based on that criteria.
I agree. I'm
I
just
think
saying you
just leave
might-
it at that.
You could get a random one where I thought there was
Fair.
unavailable and you guys disagreed.
Well, and that's why I was asking the question, both what does it mean, but also when does that determined?
Yeah.
Because I would hate for somebody to go through all of this, apply, get to city council, and then like the day before it gets to city council, somebody's ERU allocation expired, and so now city council says, oh, now there are ERUs available. You wasted all this time and effort putting together this.
But
When
wouldn't
is
you
an
go,
applicant
wouldn't you
project?
ask for city council approval before you go through the other hoops?
But yeah,
Because-
they're gonna have to do it, they're gonna have to put together an application and go through the application process to get to city council.
Are you talking like county approval and all that?
I'm talking about
Because-
just city
But
council.
that's to
But I-
me,
but
and
I
then I'm
guess-
gonna talk to Josh and Tyler and get it on an agenda. And by the time it gets before you, there could be circumstances where it's like 45 days later, 2 months later.
But, okay, but.
I see what you're
If I
saying.
go, I do too, but if I go in and I'm presenting my application. And you know that in 45 days, there's gonna be 10 ERUs coming forward, aren't you gonna tell that person, hey, in 45 days, there's gonna be this ERU allocation, you might wanna just wait?
Or they may just tell you that you have to have ERU, so just be ready for both. I just,
Or you'll know somebody's selling them and you go, hey, go talk to that guy before you go through all this work, whatever.
I guess we don't know that something expires until it expires.
Yeah.
We expect that someone's gonna renew, but if they don't.
It sounds like we have a lot of questions still, but I would encourage you all to kind of take what you've heard, propose the code language and bring it back. If we need to
So we can discuss it.
tweak it a little bit, we can do that. Is that okay? What was that, Lori?
I said, so we can discuss it a fifth time.
No, I'm just saying that, we're not gonna work it all out here tonight because we're tired. And so I don't want to have to discuss it again, but if we need to, we will. And it's not like we need to have this done, our hair is not on fire when it comes to having to get this code passed by
No, not at all.
September first.
so let me ask you guys this, just to throw this out there, maybe we can resolve it. Since we have the full discretion of approval or denial, regardless of the number of ERUs that are available, why not just take out the ERU requirement? They can come here and then we can deny it and say, hey, there's 190 ERUs. Oh, we would love to see your project. Take one of those. Or however many, or we could, I guess, in theory, say, I'd love to have a McDonald's with a porta potty. Let's approve it. I mean, you can go to the far other side, right?
And to be
You
clear.
see what I'm
I think
saying?
what-
I think that, does
Yeah,
that
but to
help
be
you?
clear, I think what Josh and I are asking is, we just want. Is it ERUs are available at the time of the application is submitted to my office? Or is it ERUs are available at the time that it's heard before the city council? That's all the direction we need, I believe, right, Josh?
Yeah.
And I would argue to ask, when do we give the ERU allocation today? If it's a normal day, we have, everything's open, the pipeline's up, and we're gonna give an ERU, is it the time of application? Or is it the time of the permit?
It's when you pull the permit, but that's irrelevant for this one though.
Not really, because that's where we got this already.
We-
We have all these ERUs that we've allocated but not issued. And so,
So I'm wondering
I
if
wanna
we
do
could,
that.
if you're asking the question, when is it available? They can do their application whether they're available or not, but when they go to do that permit, they have to be available. Or if they're not, then they can go to the alternative plan. That's what I'm envisioning.
So
That's what
I
we
guess.
got today.
Yeah.
Maybe to restate how I think this is likely to work. A developer who's wanting to develop a commercial or industrial project is going to need to do a fair amount of engineering and whatever else work to figure out what kind of alternative system is feasible and what the details of that would be to put together an application to bring that to city council to get thumbs up or thumbs down. Asking them to do that when they don't know what the situation will be at the time that it gets to city council, because they don't even know when it will get to city council. Because the city has 120 days to consider that application. Might be a significant friction point for somebody to be willing to put in all the work to put together that application to bring it to city council.
Can we just go with time of application and go on?
That's what would make the most sense, because that's how we deal with every other land use matter. It's at time of application. It's the goalpost.
completed application?
It'd be a time that the application is made, I believe, is what the goalpost.
Completed
is.
application.
Well, no, it's when if it's deemed complete within 180 days, and it relates back to when the application was initially submitted. So it does tie back to.
Time
the
it's submitted
time
with
of
180
submittal.
day grace period.
I'm sorry, you guys, you're like speaking like, really, like this and this, and I'm like 25 feet away, so I need to hear better, so. Say that again.
Doctor,
Go ahead.
me, okay. Land use law, fixed goalpost rule that Kelly was referring to. Says if you submit an application and it's not complete. If you make it complete within 180 days of when it was initially submitted. That relates back to when you initially submitted it. So you lock in the code at the time that you initially submitted it, as long as you make it complete within a timely manner. That's for the code. This is a little bit different because it's about exterior circumstances. But I think I agree with Kelly that a similar concept makes sense because Otherwise, it just, if city council's goal is for people to use this program and take advantage of it, I think that you're gonna find a lot of reluctance to put together an application and then find out that potentially a couple months have gone by and now you don't qualify after you did all that work when you would have qualified.
Right, but I think the crux of it is the ERUs. If ERUs are available, you know, are they applying for the ERUs or are they applying for alternative wastewater systems?
So at some point, they're gonna have to make a determination of whether they're gonna apply for ERUs or alternative wastewater system or some other type of program that the city might consider at some point in the future. But if they make the determination that the best path for them and what makes sense with the surrounding circumstances and ERU availability is an alternative wastewater system. So they do the work and they put together that application and then circumstances shift. Should they no longer qualify? Is the question.
And I think for case law purposes, the goalpost rule is true and tried, right?
Well, the goalpost rule again, though, only applies to the code in effect.
No, I realize that, but I'm
But
just
the
saying,
concept.
yeah, the concept I'm saying.
Well, I could get on board with the start of the application as being at the time of available ERU as well, because they line up perfectly. And I don't think that there's anybody in the planning department that doesn't know whether you got available ERUs or not at the time of an application, right? Because when you don't, you tell people we don't have any, and if you did, you'd say we do. So they'll know, they'll ask that, and they're not gonna go and design a septic system when there's available ERUs hypothetically, unless that's their end goal game. But if there are no ERUs, they'll have a whole different plan to come forward, right? So it should be at the front of that gate so that that developer knows what they've got to deal with.
I 100% agree. We're just trying to get clarity on that.
I guess we're all getting very tired here. If maybe the mayor's suggestion is the best one here. We'll bring forward a recommendation that includes at the time of application. If you have different feelings in the meantime,
At that time.
please share them with us. So we don't have to deal with it then, but we can also deal with it then if you have different feelings. The other thing we don't have to deal with at 10:30 at night is this idea of ERUs being available from the city for this project and how that will dovetail with this concept that we've discussed a few times now about when the city has more ERUs from EPA and DEQ, and we'll have some sort of a framework for who qualifies for those. It may not be as black and white as we have ERUs, we don't have ERUs. It may be we have ERUs, but this project doesn't qualify for those ERUs. So we'll have to build in some language about that.
Sounds good.
It's a really complex subject.
It sure is, absolutely.
And that's why I was, all right.
I do think this was
thank
very
you.
helpful though, from staff's
Yeah, I
perspective, to get some clarity and know what to bring back. So thank you for sticking it out and working with us to get some language. Appreciate it.
All right, so city manager report?
Sure. The short version is I am grateful for all of you and thank you for your time this evening.
Okay.
Love it.
Uh,
Yeah, mine's shorter. I'm good.
I'm good. Long time, I don't have anything to say. Rich?
Yeah, I do. Looking at all these numbers as far as wastewater dollars, there's a lot of discussion around rates and how it's gonna, the extra connection will affect the rates and stuff. SDCs as well. As I sit here and look at this, I'm thinking this is all based on, when we ran our own wastewater project, where we're looking to connect to another municipality's wastewater project. How are all of these extra ratepayers? I know it's all gonna be worked out, but I'm just really trying to wrap my mind around how the extra ratepayers are really going to affect Gresham's potential. How it's gonna economy of scale and how it's all gonna work when we're going to a much bigger thing. Yeah. Thank you. If we go there. Because I think that does change. I mean, as I sit here and think about that, that does have a lot of potential in my thoughts moving forward. Because in some ways, at some point Gresham will take over the rates. And they're not gonna ever set the rate.
I mean, there will be a rate that they charge us, but
Yeah.
we will still
Set
at
their
a rate that
rates.
we charge for our utility customers on our utility bills.
And so, but still, it's gonna be set by Gresham. I'm assuming the SDC costs would go to Gresham. Because we're paying, aren't we taking up space in there? Anyways, I would like to learn more about that at some point.
Certainly.
And be able to wrap my mind around that and how that's going to look moving forward, because that may have a play in at least how I think we should move going forward.
I will tell you that Gresham's wastewater rate is $46.48 a month, and Sandy's is $98.08 for an average family of 700 cubic feet.
Well,
So.
and that's my point. So
Yeah.
maybe that rate drops, but we're still going to have
Pay
to
for the loans, exactly.
pay for all the loans and stuff. So I don't know how those.
Yeah.
numbers
Loans
are
are
all
paying
gonna
for the
go.
SDCs in the budgets today.
Huh?
You mentioned the SDC going to Gresham, that's factored into the loans and the overall project cost.
Is
Yes,
it?
yeah, it's an estimate because we haven't finalized them, but they estimated them high during that overall project.
So that's the SEC to buy into their system.
That's, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's SDC to buy into their system. I'm talking about each person that comes along and pays an SDC.
That would come back to us, not to Gresham.
So we're gonna take up more room in Gresham's capacity at that
So-
point. So there will have to be some other,
There-
like I
there'll-
said, at some point, I'd just like
There will
to,
be a split.
Yeah,
yeah,
let's have that.
I'd like to learn about how that's gonna affect it. Like, will our connections, will those SDC rates really affect our current ratepayers' rates as much as kind of anticipated? I don't think it will, as I sit there and listen to it. So anyways, that's all I had. Thank you.
Lord,
All good questions.
no report.
Me neither. Good to go.
Was there a Parks Board meeting?
There was.
No.
Yep. Do I remember what we talked about? No. Come back to me.
Okay, well, maybe at the next meeting to report out. Great. Okay, I went to the Oregon Mayor's Conference, great discussion from Baker City. That's where it was at, and they had a fantastic demonstration of how historic register, Main Street vitalization, use of transit, lodging taxes, all help them do this, economic development of downtown. There was a discussion about how to deal with empty buildings that they have, how to deal with it, out of town owners and all that. Learned a lot about some ideas about how to consider those, including consider using windows for advertisements of other businesses that are not in the downtown. So for empty buildings not getting used, there's opportunities for advertising. We discussed our ability to alter regulatory processes and dealing with difficult situations both in and out of city council meetings, and maintaining transparency and trust with councilors and our constituents and staff, and discuss the benefits of regional solutions. The very end is what they say from the very end was House Bill 3115, homeless, the state bill and best practices. There's still lots of unknowns and can't say exactly, but they have some ideas, and I learned some cautionary tales there. I will be sending out some reminders to everybody on council protocol for best communications, and we'll go from there. Anybody else need to say something?
I'll just add that, I got a mining park update. They gave us, details about how they were making more ADA adjustments, on the path and adding an additional bathroom by the parking lot. So they're still scoping that out right now, but, there's a big update on that. So that was really good. And then we got a Deer Park update as well. And if you've driven over there, they're leveling the ground right now. And the basketball covered court has arrived. It is in town, not installed yet. So sorry.
Oh, that's great.
I gotta go back
Thank
to
you.
my
I was
notes.
curious. Yeah. All right, anybody else? Thank you, everybody. 10:33 meeting.